Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. Alright folks, here we are during Power Hour on Wednesday, September 1st. We're going to take a look at Nano Dimension, NNDM today. This was requested by a commenter in a previous video. If you have a ticker that you would like to request that I cover, please leave that in the comments below. Please just put the ticker symbol, not the company name. And if I reply to you and say that I've added it to the list, then you can know that I've done so. And if I don't reply to you, then just assume that I've missed the comment because I don't catch them all, and just feel free to re-comment on a future video or even a new comment on this video. So NNDM obviously having a very, very challenging year. This is the year-to-date chart. So you see there was this run up here into the high teens, and then just an absolute plummet, a brief sort of dead cat bounce here, and then just continuing to fall through pretty aggressively. If we take a look at this, take a look at the channel that it's basically stuck in at the moment, it's kind of twofold. So there's this one channel here, and then there's also what I would consider to be a sub-channel that's developing right about here. That's catching a bunch of this more recent activity. So you see both of these obviously down channels. This is the longer term versus the shorter term one right now that it's just bouncing between from about the beginning of July till now. So for about the past 2 months almost, like really losing track of what month it is these days. If there is an opportunity here, the way that I would see it obviously is for it to work itself out of these channels and then to work on a trend reversal. If there is an area where it could be setting up some support in order to work from, I would say this 1540 looks like strong potential back here, support, and then it held that recently. So on its first test of that 540 zone, I know that it dipped slightly below on that 523 dip, but it then very quickly reclaimed the area and has continued to work itself up since then. The other place that I would look for here is the 612 would be the most tight in support area, probably. Let's see. I mean, also about right where it is. There's maybe a little bit of a band there, but the 612 I think is fair. You see it flipped from resistance to support here, was previous resistance for a while, previous support for a while, and then previous support back here as well after flipping from resistance that you see here. So these areas that work themselves in both resistance and support over periods of time, to me, are the strongest zones to pay attention to for future support and resistance. Obviously, they're just support if they happen to fall below the current price, and then they are just resistance if they happen to be situated above the current price. This is the next level up, as I would see it. The 663 is probably going to be a bit of a resistance level. Don't know if that's exactly where it hit today. High of 657 so far today, so a few pennies shy. But you see previous resistance here, and resistance that tried to flip to support, couldn't hold it. But back here as well, resistance for several days that flipped to support and then gave it a nice jumping off period, and even had resistance prior to that. And even prior to that, and prior to that was support. So pretty strong zone there at 663. That said, if it's able to actually establish support over that and not just make an attempt and then fall back through, that could give it what it needs, even if it just kind of moves sideways in order to get itself out of this tighter channel, and then working itself again, even just sideways, would work itself eventually out of this longer term down channel. If it did go sideways along this support line at 663, it wouldn't work itself out until like the 3rd week of October though. So it'd be another 7 weeks or so down the road. Now, if we want to look for another support zone to the downside, obviously we have to come way back here to look for a zone. This 452, if it needs it, to me would be the next most obvious spot, resistance to support. support, resistance, resistance, support. And I'm not going to plot further down than that. Obviously, if it gets down below 452 and it can't hold that at support, if it even tests it, then there's significant cause for concern, I would say. To the upside, this 696, so just shy of that $7 level, which will probably have an additional sort of psychological factor to it, just being a round figure of $7, and then 728 to the upside. So these seem like really, really tight end zones, you know, being that they're not, say, even $1 apart from each other, and that's true. But as a percentage of the price of the stock, it's actually a decent percentage gain. So if this jumped from 663 to 696, that 33 cents that it would go up would actually be, what, a 5% gain or something. So it's actually a decent run if you're able to catch it, especially in the vast scheme of a stock where, you know, folks who've been holding it for longer term have probably taken quite a thrashing in terms of how beaten down their position is. You know, on the MACD, it's just kind of leveling out, and it's not really doing much of anything. That said, if it continues to work itself sideways, like I said, that will work it out of these down channels. And then what I would just be cautious of, whether it's this closer in down channel or this broader down channel, when it kicks itself out, I would just be cautious that it doesn't very quickly re-enter. That often happens, so I wouldn't get overly excited if it kicks itself out of a channel. It could just do that and then very, very quickly re-enter it. Or even if it kicks itself out of this channel, say, start following it down and essentially practically, for all practical purposes, be doing the same thing, which is just moving down in price, just be slightly outside of the channel, but still following this upper bound of the channel down further and further. So I would just be aware and be cautious of that. Yeah, so I mean, to my mind, that's what I would be looking for if I were holding NNDM. I'm not, but quickly taking a look at the data, very high utilization on the short side of things. So over 91% of the shares available to be lent to short sellers are accounted for or are already being utilized. So even though the percentage of the free float being shorted is just a little over 11%, which is high in my opinion. I look at anything over 10% as creating additional undue pressure on a stock, but it's not something that would really, really make me super concerned, which is over 15 and approaching 20. But that said, the utilization being so high, that does tell me that the pressure is about as maximum as it could be from short sellers. That the flip side of that, I guess, would be that there isn't a lot that can be done on the short seller side of things to add more pressure to NNDM at the moment, because they only have about 9% of the available loans to borrow out, shares available to be loaned out to borrow in order to short sell back in. So they could be a little bit limited in that to that extent. But you know, good luck if you're in this one. It's definitely a challenging one. To me, the biggest ray of hope is this sort of most recent double bottom that you have working here right around that 540 area. If that can actually hold, it's double bottomed out previously and it hasn't been able to hold. So that may not mean anything, but you know, it's worth keeping an eye on and seeing what it does, at least in the meantime. All right, well, I hope that your trading week is going well, and I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.